Let me just check with my team if they can see us Facebook Live because we are live right now. Yes, I think I got a notification that we are live. So, yes, meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Hi, everyone. And I hope we are audible and we have, just give us a minute. I'm just checking if everything is okay technically. Okay, I hope we are audible. Just give us a thumbs up so we know and we can begin. You're pretty much exactly on time, Jayneen. Isn't that wonderful? That's
Good.
amazing. Great. So, good morning to everybody in India. Good evening in Australia. And yes, we are live, and we are live with an incredibly talented woman and an amazing person because I got to know her through her Instagram, you can say, handle, and I have seen that she has this amazing body of work. She's an author, she's a blogger, she's been an early years educator, and I believe that she's a fierce advocate when it comes to her work with respect to consent, with respect to body safety, with respect to gender equality, and also there are books on resilience and stuff. She has like a huge resource bank. So I would like to call Jayneen a resource bank for anyone who would like to see her work. She's available on Instagram and she has her page on Facebook. We will be tagging her in the post later, and it's amazing to have Jayneen with us. And she believes in empowering children from the early years. That's a very important thing. And even at Cactus Foundation, Jayneen, we do believe that prevention is better than cure. We begin early so we can catch them early. And the most important thing is Jayneen has been the lead author for the children's literacy series, Engage Literacy, that is published by Capstone Classroom, and has written over 130 titles for that series. Amazing, Jayneen. That's awesome. And she has a lot of downloads and she has her own website, and she's also a publisher, and she's a publisher for that's her own thing, that is Empower to Educate. Okay, so you can also be going there and checking all the resources, and there's a lot of work. And most importantly, she's a mother to three wonderful amazing daughters. I was just talking before we went live. I was just telling Jayneen, that I love what your daughter does, because I think there is one book, Be Your Own Man, that she's written. And I was like, wow, these girls, amazing. So, Jayneen is an amazing mother, and that's how it is. So, she's available on Amazon as well. You'll find her books on Amazon as well. We will talk to her about books and everything. So, let's begin. Welcome, Jayneen, to the Cactus Foundation Live. As you know, we're doing this campaign. Yes, we are doing this campaign, Key to Change, Raise Responsible Boys, because in India, there is gender discrimination on many levels, and I'm sure not just in India. I think we all face it somewhere in some or the other form. The degree can be different, but we all do go through this. So I'm looking forward to beginning this session. And the most important highlight of this session is Jayneen is going to help us understand everything about consent. And consent is one of the action points that we have undertaken in our campaign, Raise Responsible Boys, because that's something really, really important for us to help our boys with. So let's begin. So, Jayneen, you have an amazing line of books that you have authored, you have published, and there are plenty of resources that you've been creating. And I see, I think, almost one post daily. So there's always this, and that everything is so informative, so beautifully done. And the theme has always been around body safety, it has been around consent, it has been around gender equality, resilience. So I want to know what exactly inspires to choose this theme, and why do you do what you do?
Well, I think it started probably about 10 years ago. And I had a really good friend, my neighbor, who's an older woman, and she was sexually abused as a child.
Okay.
And her husband sexually abused her son and her daughter for as long as they can remember.
That's
And
wow.
I'm not a survivor of sexual abuse, but she's told her story to me. And she said to me, we have to learn, we have to protect children, we have to educate children before they're in the perpetrator's web. Because once they're in that perpetrator's web, it becomes very complex.
Right.
But prevention is incredibly easy. And it just really built a passion in me that we need to do more for kids. And having been an early years educator, I really decided that, we need to do more for these kids. So I went to my children's school council and I spoke to them and I said to them, look, why don't we do more in this space? And they kept putting me to the end of the agenda. So I came home that particular night and I said to my husband, okay, I'm going to write a book on this and then someone will take notice of me. So that was the first book, which was Some Secrets Should Never Be Kept. Now, being an educator, I realize you just can't read a story to children. You need to introduce the topic,
Right.
you need to unpack it for them, you need to reinforce the concepts. So that's when I started to build lesson plans around this particular book. And from there, it just kind of morphed into lots of other books where
Right.
I feel there is a need and children don't have a voice and I want to say something for them, I will fill that space with a book. So that's how the passion ignited in me, and it continues on. I want to do
That's
more than that.
amazing. That's amazing. And what I liked about what you just said is that I wish we have as many Jennings as possible in the world, because you listened and you heard the survivor and you took action in your own way. So I think our viewers will understand that there's so much, if we can empathize, there's a little that all of us can do to help the survivors and also to prevent, basically. And what an opportunity you saw, when they said, okay, that they're not, like, listening to you, and you took this like, wow. And look at, I mean, where you have reached. Look at the amazing body of work that you've been able to create. Amazing. That's so inspiring, Janine.
Well, I think
So,
that for survivors, it's very hard to have a voice. It takes a lot
yeah.
of bravery, and people sort of go, it's really tough. And I thought, I could be a bit more of a voice for them. And so many survivors have said to me, if only I'd had this kind of education before I was touched
Yes.
inappropriately, how
Yes.
different my life would have been. How different.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
as you said, we can all do something, and it's kind of like a ripple effect. Oh, to your neighbor, are you teaching your child body safety? To your school, are you teaching body safety at the school? And we can kind of ripple it out from there.
Perfect.
Mm.
I totally can relate to the fact how people kind of dismiss when we take the concept of body safety, on when we start talking to parents, whether it's adults, kids, so mostly the adults are extremely resistant. And we do face, I mean, in India, there are schools who kind of right at the gate, we are like, send off. Oh, they've come on, just they're not allowed entry in the school. So I totally understand. So, Jenny, the world is not a place where everything and everyone is equal, or it's not really inclusive in so many ways, especially when it comes to gender. Like in India, what we have is like it's consent and stuff like this is a one-way street. There is no two-way thing, and it's always a one-way street. There is culture, there is a lot of social pressure, there is a lot of stereotypes, and there's so many things. And
Not
women
always
and
in
young
India,
girls,
in
yes.
all countries, I'm afraid. Mm.
Yes, hope, yeah. And women and girls are constantly pressurized, do this, don't do this. There's a whole set of rules, charters, and they have a constitution for women, unspoken, I believe, but extremely strong in action. And especially when it comes to sexual assault, victims are blamed, and shamed as well. So, why are we failing, like falling short of making boys understand their responsibilities? Because they are the most important stakeholder in making the problem so big, and they can all as well be the most important stakeholder in solving it and in being a solution to it. But why do you think are we all failing to address boys?
Well, it comes down to misogyny. It comes down to what's modeled at home. It comes down to the genders not being equal. It comes
Right,
down to men thinking they have more power than over women. It
right,
comes down to those cultural ideals, and that is modeled at home. That is what girls see. That is what boys see. Girls are, the weaker sex. The boys have the power. And if this is
right.
modeled at home, of course they're going to think that they are the ones who have all the power. So if this is constantly modeled, then that is the kind of boys that we're going to have. And they're going to be sexist, and they're going to misogynist, and they're going to think they can take what they want.
Right. And what you just said kind of reminds me when we roll this campaign on Key to Change. Would you even believe we had women who have messaged us and said, why are you even beginning this topic? Because why are you trying to point fingers at boys and men? Don't you think it's women who should be responsible to be modest or to dress well and stuff like that? So
Um, I'll
it's,
say something there.
please.
Um, those times have passed. Um, I've been fighting a fight for a very long time, from the 70s and the 80s, first wave feminism. Why should I continue to fight a fight that I should never have to fight in the first place? I
Perfect.
am equal to any man, but yet I have to keep fighting for my place. And, if I want to dress how I want to dress, that's my right. It doesn't mean I want men to look at me. I do not. I just want to feel good about me. So we are equal, and it's not our responsibility if men are sexually abusing women. It's their responsibility. They're the ones who are coming across into a woman's boundary. They're the ones who are doing the sexual assault. We need to flip this around. We need to stop making women feel guilty for
Absolutely.
men who are perpetrators. This has to stop. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just
Absolutely.
so dangerous for our girls. And, many people out there have young girls. Do you want a life for them like this, where they have to watch every step, hold keys in case there's someone's following them, like we know, have to cover completely up so men don't look at them? Like,
Yes.
no. Is that the life that you want for your daughter? Men, step up, stand beside us. Boys, step up, stand beside us, see us as equal, and walk with us, and read the body language. When a girl says no, she says no.
It means
If
no.
she does,
Yes.
if she's silent, that's no. If she looks frightened, that's no. We only want a very, very enthusiastic consent. Yes, yes. So
I
it's
love
right
that.
back and
Enthusiastic consent. It sounds so
enthusiastic
positive, and
consent.
it's also
Yeah,
empowering. It's so
absolutely.
empowering. It's so empowering to even think of it. So we, it's like on one front, we are working on with boys and we have to help them. And I think there is another battle that we have to fight is to help women understand that you don't have to feel guilty for your choices materialistically, choices in your thoughts, for your belief system, and you're not answerable and accountable, basically. You are a human being. You need to be seen as a human being. You need to be valued as a human being. And your inner worth is what matters. That is something that our women need to, anyone who's listening to this, and I'm sure many women are going to watch this live later as well. Please, I think Jayneen mentioned very importantly that yes, and for the boys, enthusiastic consent. I just
Consent.
loved it. I'm going to take that home.
And also, stop apologizing, women. Stop being apologetic for being
Exactly.
a woman. Stop saying, oh, sorry, I'm sorry I bumped you, or, stop. Don't be apologetic because you're a woman. You're a human being and you have rights, just like the guy next to you. You have rights. So it's
Absolutely.
time.
Absolutely. So we've already come closer to this topic, and I think let's hit the bullseye. You've written so many books on consent, and you just introduced it so well in this live session, that enthusiastic consent. So can you tell our audiences what exactly are we talking when we are saying consent? What exactly does that mean?
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. So first of all, there is two things happening as well. There's gender equality. There's also talking about feelings, and there's consent. So when the child, you know that you're having a child and you're having a boy or a girl, don't start labeling. As soon as you start labeling that child, oh, your boy is going to be so strong, just like his daddy, or your daughter, she's a little princess, what a little sweetie pop. You are putting a label. You are restricting that child, particularly the girl. You are putting her in a box already, and you are not allowing her to the freedom to be whoever she wants to be. And in fact, when you're telling boys to man up and be stronger, you're also putting them in a box. They can't feel, I'm really sad, I don't like that. Let
Absolutely.
them cry. That's okay. Softness can be a strength, as my daughter says. Softness, the feminine side of all of us, is a strength to be able to express emotions. Okay, starting there. When they're young, you model consent in your home. You see that the man is respecting the woman and the woman is respecting the man. And can I have a cup of tea? Of course you can, dear. Using please and thank you and showing that consent in the home and that equality in the home. Once a child starts to talk, and also when you're interacting with that child, you can be saying, okay, I'm going to now put your little singlet on. I'm going to now put your shoes on, talking to them, telling them what you're doing with their
Right.
body. Then once they're kind of speaking, you can start to bring in that they have an invisible body boundary around them. This is the personal space, and
Right.
people have to ask if they want to come into your space. They can't just take. They can't just say, give me a hug. You can't do that. People have to say, may I have a hug? And equally, the child needs to come back and say to a person, can I have a hug? So it works both ways.
Both
Now,
ways.
people
Right.
often say to me, oh, for goodness sakes, I can just hug my child. What you're setting them up for, and you can, but if obviously the child's very happy about it, but what you're setting them up for is when they're teenagers, that people can just take hugs and kisses
Absolutely. Right.
when they want. They don't need to ask, they just
Right.
take. And also, when you say to a child, go and hug your uncle, go and hug your uncle now, and the child doesn't want to, that says your voice doesn't matter, child. Your adults can do whatever they like with you. And that sets them up for grooming and perpetrators and sexual abuse. So you have to give your child a voice. They have the right to say, can I have a hug to someone? And to someone to ask back, may I have a hug? Medical
Absolutely.
professionals too. May I touch your tummy to see because you're sick? Yes, you can. May I look in your mouth, the dentist? Okay, you can. So you need to ask their consent so they have body autonomy when they're little. So it moves through into teenagerhood and adulthood where then you're asking more for sexual consent and what that means. So
Right. So this conditioning needs to happen right. And it's like it's not that you cannot hug your child or you don't have any right, because that's the negative perception most people have. Why should I ask permissions? And forget hugs. I think even in the smallest instances, wherever you find this opportunity, you have to respect the child as an individual and not just rub them off. Oh, they're children. They don't need to be asked, right from
no,
their food, their routine,
yep,
to the classes that they wish to join. Indian parents who are listening to this, please listen to this conversation. That's a very important conversation. There are so many parents, they kind of just take their kids and put them into some class without even seeking their permission or asking them whether they're interested or not interested. So when I take workshops, I actually ask parents, you have to first, the child should give consent, and only then is he allowed in my class if he
and
wants to.
if he wants to, and give them a voice. Don't just dismiss
Exactly.
them as children. That means they don't matter. And everybody in this world, adult, teenager, or child, needs to feel they matter. So we need to give them that to say, okay, your voice does matter from a very young
Absolutely.
age. And that's empowering. That's very empowering. And an empowered child is an empowered teenager, is an empowered adult. So
Absolutely.
we need to
Absolutely.
really start these conversations quite young. Mm.
Right. So I also would like to know, can you burst some myths about consent? What are the myths that most people have? So one is people, okay, they know that it's about permission and the way you said, but I think there are definitely a lot of myths that people have about consent, and they kind of think about it only in a restricted zone. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
So
I
I would
do.
want you to highlight what are the myths about consent.
Okay, so one of them is that, like you said, oh, it's my child. I'm going to hug my child. I have free range. And that you might like to sort of like a social story with your child, and you work out who are the people that you can always hug and kiss. That could be a case, but I still think it's a
Still
myth to us.
risky.
I'll tell
Yeah.
you why. I have the three daughters, and our youngest daughter, right from day dot, she does not like to be touched. She does
Okay.
not like hugs. She does not like kisses. And, that's really tough for me because I'm a real hugger and I'm really
Okay.
affectionate. And that's been really tough for me, but it's not about my needs. It's about
Exactly.
her needs. She
Right.
wasn't born for my needs. She was born to be her own person. So I have to just, step back and say, okay, what are your other love languages? And that would be chatting to me, going for a walk with me, saying, hey, mum, can we have lunch? And just because she's not affectionate, it doesn't mean she doesn't love me. So don't assume your child always wants you to hug or kiss them. And then sometimes you don't want your child always hugging and kissing you. You need some space as well. So it
Right.
kind of works both ways. So that's a bit of a myth. And the other one is about like tickling. I remember I wrote an
Yes.
article and everybody was like, oh, are you saying I can't tickle my child? Well, I can
Right.
tell you, tickling is a perpetrator's grooming technique.
Grooming technique.
Tickle,
Absolutely.
tickle, tickle. Oops, I'm sorry, I touched your private parts. Tickle, tickle. Oh, sorry again. Testing the child to see that they don't mind. Testing the child that it's okay to move there. So, but when a
Right.
child says stop to tickling, you stop.
Right.
You absolutely stop. And then if they say, oh, you can tickle me again, you can start again. But if they say stop, you stop.
You have
So
to stop.
tickling is
Right.
another kind of myth that we have as well. What else is there? Um,
I
yes,
think,
look, I
yes.
think you go on.
One of the myths that I think I have, what I notice is people think that consent is only about sexual boundaries,
Yes,
especially
it's not.
teenage boys and even their parents. They think, okay, it's just about the sexual boundaries. I would want you to kind of elaborate on this,
Okay,
if
so
you
when
can.
we start from that beginning, it's got nothing to do with sex. Okay, nothing. Sexual boundaries will be later on. And I know in India that most children are not legally meant to be having any sexual relationships before 18. I know that because I wrote a book, as you know, for India called My
Yeah.
Body, My Rules. Um, so from that young age, it is totally, sex is never mentioned. It's totally about empowering children around their body and giving them that voice and using the correct terms for their private parts. Now, this is actually really crucial as well in our body safety, because we've had instances here in Australia where a little girl came up to the teacher and said, my uncle touched my cookie. Now, the teacher just thought it was a biscuit, but
Biscuit. Yeah.
that was the name she used for her vulva. So the teacher dismissed it, and the little girl, she probably didn't tell anyone else. But also, if you use these cutie names, it will not
Right.
hold up in court of law as well. So we have to dismiss that. But as they get older, it isn't just about sexual consent.
Right.
It's about, you know, what is comfortable for a person. Is it
Absolutely.
comfortable for them to be in your space? Is it comfortable for them to hold your hand, or is it comfortable for you to play that game with them? You might say, okay, actually I don't want you to play that game with me. So it's also about bullying behaviors. So it's
Right.
like stepping inside of someone's boundary and being aggressive. You can't do that either. These people, we have our boundary, and you have to step back. So consent is not always about sexual, although that it does really become quite us, the majority of it as they get older and become more sexually active, for sure. Yeah.
Right. Right.
And boys need to recognize, particularly boys, need to recognize what consent is. So they need to know that um, as I said, maybe or I'm not sure is not consent.
Cannot
And
consent.
silence, and not to think about just their needs, but to look at their partner and say, is this okay with you? Are you okay? And look at their body language, because unfortunately many girls will be guilted into things, will be ashamed into things,
Right.
thinking, oh, he won't like me if I don't do this.
Right.
um, I really have to do this because then everyone will talk about me if I don't. And, they're shamed or guilted into these things. And, that can start from a young age as well. For
Right.
example, if you give your grandmother a hug, I know you don't want to, but if you give her a hug, I'll give you some lollies. So, or if you don't give your grandma a hug, she's going to be really, really sad, and that's really mean of you.
Right.
So
Right.
straight away, you're guilting that child into feeling bad about not giving affection, and therefore this can then translate later into sexual encounters as well.
Right. So, you actually trying to tell us that the parenting style, the communication, the connection, the engagement, and the kind of message that you're giving, through simple day-to-day tasks and transactions with your child, they are
Yeah,
going to be like the foundation to make them understand consent, not just as kids, but that kind of graduates as a teenager as well, right?
exactly.
So that's exactly that. That's so important and so relevant. But it's never too late for people who are watching this and who think, "Oh, I have a teenage son or I have a teenage daughter." I believe anything you can just about start. It's just about 1 minute that you have to change your belief system and you start getting it into the action mode. So, and yes, I'm not going to forget the enthusiastic consent part. Boys and men, if you're listening to this, it has to be, you definitely ask your partner about this enthusiastic consent and you clarify things. One of our action points, Janine, is one interesting thing is we have kind of added is teaching our young boys about intimacy, because if it's about consent, it's also related. If you're intimate, emotionally intimate with your partner, I'm sure you will recognize the need for consent from both the parties. But if you're not thorough with that, then all sort of mishaps and accidents are going to happen. So, while growing up, now you have to tell me about your experience, because it was like decades ago. And when you were growing up, how was it? How did you learn about consent? How was the environment and around you? And what are your childhood memories when it comes to consent and body safety, body autonomy? Because I'm sure, like decades ago, I'm not too sure, like in Australia, if all this was practiced at that time, because in India we still don't practice it. We are like in 2021 and we are still like lagging way behind. And in Australia, I've also seen that there's a huge effort. Even the government machinery system, the legal framework, and there are a lot of NGOs and a lot of people like you who are working on field, and their laws and the way they are taking this is amazing. It's worth emulating, I feel, on many occasions. So, what was it
Yeah.
like then, like decades ago? Your
Well,
experience?
just very currently now, we do where I live have child safety standards. So there's 7 of them, and the
Yes.
7th one is about actually teaching consent and body safety. So this is
Wow.
mandatory in our schools. So it's happening, it's going on, and people say, "Oh, parents should do this," but do you know what? Some parents aren't going to do this. So we do need our teachers to step in, and also in our schools, because incidences happen. For example, a friend told me today that our little boy was trying to peek at another little boy under the toilet. So the teacher can, because they've done work in consent and body safety, they can say,
Right.
you remember our rules, there they are. Now that's not okay. That's a private
Right.
place. You can't do that. So they kind of own it. Now, back when I was growing up, I actually think it's actually gotten a little bit worse now because of pornography and
Yeah.
online social media.
Absolutely.
I think
Okay.
for me growing up, I was always fairly a strong kind of girl anyway. Um, Maybe a farm girl, I don't know.
You
But
are.
yes, I didn't suffer fools gladly. And it was all about, feeling very strong and reasonably confident about myself. So I didn't have any problem with consent because I think that's just my general personality, to be honest. But I think now it's really tough because of pornography. In
Right.
pornography, which boys are seeing as young as 10,
Absolutely.
a
Yeah.
lot of
10.
boys, there is no consent. And there is, and if in India, boys are receiving their sex education not at school, not at home, and they're seeing pornography, well, of course, they just think girls are objects, they're nothing, there's no consent.
Right.
She's, she's enjoying this piece of whatever's going on, but she's not. And in the real world, this is not how it works. This is not how women are. It has to be consensual. It has to be two people enjoying each other's relationship. And pornography just gives a very, very dangerous false representation of sexual relationships. And if boys are learning it through this way, then it's very, very dangerous because they think that's okay to hit a woman, to strike a woman, to have anal sex. They think that this is normal and okay, but
Yeah.
this is not the real world. And I'm afraid our girls are suffering for it.
Yeah, they definitely are. And in India, the way you said, it's the truth. It's a fact that parents won't speak, schools won't speak, and people who are speaking, like let's say people like a team of Cactus Foundation, we're trying to speak. You're not allowed to speak. You're thrown with all sort of brickbats and challenges and stuff. But now I'm sure we there's a lot of work, but we're glad that Cactus Foundation is taking this initiative so strongly and head on. It's like head on with the
Head
wild
on.
bull.
Yes.
Yes, because there's no other way, Jenny. There's no other route, and there's no like quoting it sweetly and saying you have to be. Someone has to be direct. So be it. If it is so, we have decided to do it.
And that is fantastic. And that is what needs to happen. And also we need to say to parents out there, really, you have a fear of this. You have a massive fear about consent and body safety.
Right.
But it's not about your fear. It's about your children having some skills to take forward to keep them safe. And wouldn't you rather have your children safe and protected to a certain degree than just go, oh, this is too big for me, I'm too scared, and then sending them out into the world in an unsafe world? It is so much better to put your fear aside and to go, okay, I know prevention education is helpful. It doesn't guarantee 100%, but my God, it's a lot better than not. So Cactus Foundation is doing this. You need to get into schools. You need parents to listen to you, because if they don't, it's actually particularly dangerous for their daughters, particularly their daughters.
Yeah,
And
I remember this experience. I would like to share this before we go ahead. One of the survivors of CSA, that is child sexual abuse, she narrated that she came to us for depression, that she was suffering depression. And then when we took her case study, it again zeroed down to child sexual abuse through her tuition teacher. And she would go to this place where her teacher would teach her. And then when she had to go to the washroom, the teacher's husband was, like hovering around, and he kind of put his hands in her panty. So this 12-year-old goes and tells her mother, you know what, I don't want to go there because it's like, he put his hands in my panty. Can you believe what the mother said? The mother tells her that, no, it can't be. It must be on your belly. It cannot be. You have felt wrong. So there is this huge denial psychosis is what I put in India. There is a huge denial. They are dismissive. They know it's happening under their nose, but reputation and stuff like this is making us so hard. So that's why we said no, consent needs to be spoken about, because that's so important, and
and
that's why
one
we
other
got you.
yes, and one other thing about that is that children are not responsible for keeping themselves safe, right?
That's so
It's
important.
adults who keep them safe by teaching these lessons, but by educating themselves to believe a child when they say somebody put their hands in their pants. You
Right.
have to say, I believe you. I understand. I'm here for you.
Right.
Never blame the child. Never, never blame the child. Educate yourself, parents. Educate yourself about the grooming. Educate yourself that 1 in 2 girls are sexually abused in India. So this is the facts. And so people are grooming you, and they're grooming not just the child, but they're grooming the whole family. So educate yourself and then educate your child, but it's not their responsibility to keep themselves safe. They just
Absolutely.
are learning some skills that will in some way hopefully assist them if they are ever touched inappropriately.
Right, right. Very well said. I was also wanting to know, do you have or can you share an experience of how lack of consent is traumatized? Do you know of a story? Did someone share it with you? I'm sure your readers respond to you because you write so well and it's all kids. I'm sure their parents, yeah. And parents who are, like investing in your books. I will not say buying your books. I will say investing in your books, the quality of your books. They are responsible enough. So this is for all your readers from our side, because yes, in India it's so tough to even, tell that okay, this costs something and you invest in it. It's very tough. But there I would say the trend is that yes, people invest in such services and such books and programs and workshops. So it's amazing. So I'm sure they respond to you once they read it. So any such heartwarming response or any response where you got to know that some child or some parent has opened up about their own trauma or anything, can you share that with us, and
We
especially
have
with
a lot
respect to
of,
consent?
oh yes, we have a lot of particularly parents who have been sexually abused themselves as a child. And so they are very vigilant about educating their children because they just don't want it to happen to their child. So they have
Right.
shared their stories. And I did have a little girl who wrote to me. She was only 12 and she'd been sexually abused by her father. And this is another point, like in the media, everybody's okay about saying, well, they're not okay, but they're saying, in Australia, we talk about priests were sexually abusing children or sports coaches, but people feel very uncomfortable when they start to say, well, it was actually my father, it was actually my stepfather, it was actually my uncle. But we know that that happens in a lot of cases. And so
Right.
she was sexually abused, and she started writing to me, and I got her permission from her mother to write to me, and she would just, I sent her a copy of Some Secrets, gifted her a copy, and she was really lovely. But as the years went on, she did become very have low self-esteem, and I had to constantly saying, "You're so strong, you're amazing," and it is very, very damaging. The sexual abuse of a child is incredibly damaging, and to the point where some some survivors are not surviving; they've actually committed suicide. So,
Right.
and also we know that disabled kids are, I think it's 2.6 times more likely to be
Yes.
sexually abused. But on the upside, I do have some people who send me videos of their child saying no means no, and this is
Wow.
my body, what I say goes, and really
Right.
being across the messages. And that really warms my heart because I know they're only little, but they're standing there like this, and
Yes,
I,
that's the future. I mean, you're investing in the future. That's so amazing.
yes. And so I love to get those images and videos, and that's very heartwarming for our team and me. Yeah.
Right. I'm sure my audiences and our audiences are going to agree to this fact that Jayneen, we actually wanted, Jayneen has so many topics that she writes about, but we chose her for consent because if you observe, if she just mentioned that, okay, she wrote to me and her mother wrote to me, and then I took consent of her mother. So this consent thing is so ingrained in her system, and you're the
Yes.
best person for consent, is what we believe in.
I'm sure I'm not the best person for consent at all, but yeah, I'm very passionate about empowering children. Maybe because when I was little, I didn't have much of a voice. So I do want our children to have voices and to people to respect their rights. And so I'm been very lucky, I guess, or fortunate that I can write in a way that children relate to, kind of using their voice. So that's been really great. But I always put discussion questions in the back so that parents can unpack the messages with the children so they don't feel
Right.
like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to say if they
What
ask
to
me
say,
this.
yes.
So there's always discussion questions to sort of help them unpack it as well.
Wow, wow. So what we like about you is the mindfulness. Like it's not just about designing books and authoring books. You are practicing it, Jenny, and that makes it so powerful. That's how I believe it. You know, it is
Yeah.
because this was not a scripted talk, but the way you
No,
said, I've been observing every word, and I'm seeing that okay, this lady is like, you know, in India, we wouldn't have done that. We would have said, okay, fine, the child is, ask the child to write to me, or without permission, we would have communicated with the child. So, this is the mindfulness that we all need to have when it comes to consent. And that's exactly the lesson that each one of you needs to take home. The next thing is, do you think, you know, dads and fathers need to be more proactively involved in their child's life? Because again, here in India, most fathers are absent. So I think in one of our stories where we are actually talking to a lot of boys, we are now doing this key to change program in different schools, and especially with young boys. So we tagged as like, okay, we are trying to make up for the absent fathers, because they are not going to talk about you know, growing up, the challenges, the hormones, the body changes, autonomy or consent with their children, or intimacy. So we decided, okay, we are now actually trying to be the absent fathers. But don't you think that fathers need to be more proactively involved into their boys' life, especially more into the child's life, of course, but then for boys, to help them understand the concept of body safety, consent, gender equality, or saying no to domestic violence? There's a huge role and responsibility that fathers need to pick up. What's your take on this?
absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, we have girls, but my husband has been totally equal fathering with the girls.
Wow.
When my daughter, you know, one of them first got menstruated, they would straight to tell him about it. It was fantastic. But I mean, for India, I think you're going to have like a new kind of father in a way, because you know the power, it will be taken away to a certain degree when we say, well, women are equal. So, but we do need fathers in the life with their right messages, with messages
Right.
of equality, with messages for respect, with messages of consent, not messages of I'm the boss of the household and what I say goes. So it's a new kind of fathering, and that's going to be a massive, swift change in India. Maybe with the younger men coming through, the men that
Yes.
you are working, the boys that you are working with,
Yes.
maybe they'll be different kinds of fathers. Now, I'm seeing it everywhere in Australia more and more. In fact, I put a picture on Instagram. I don't know if you saw it, but it was at my local supermarket, and there was a dad there, very big,
Yeah, I
tall
saw
man.
that. Yes.
Yeah. And I thought this is the kind of dads we want for the next generation, where he is doing the shopping, he is carrying the baby, he is being the nurturer, he is being the kind and caring person, because this is a strength, as we said. So I think definitely fathers need to be involved in their sons' lives, but with the right messages. And I think that there's quite a bit of work to be done in all
Yes,
countries.
absolutely.
And I think when you're providing these messages to young boys, it's going to be tricky for them because they're not seeing it maybe in their home. So you're telling them these consent messages and women are equal and asking for consent, but if it's not modeled, it could be easily fall into other patterns. But hopefully they will be a new kind of father
Yes,
coming.
absolutely. Yes,
Mm.
as you mentioned, yes, the younger generation has been changing. Like, I mean, they have changed to quite an extent. And I mean, my own husband, he's like always shoulder to shoulder. There are, I mean, yeah, that's the kind of father I would want for every child. I mean, that's the kind of image, and that's the kind of actions that he takes in everything. So, and even the young boys, interestingly, though they don't have fathers who are kind of role models, you know, to practice all these things, but they are suffocated with the patriarchy. So young
Mm.
boys are actually suffocated, and the gender inequality is not just about. It's more about the power that you're saying, you know, because one person, the power is all, you know, like centralized at one place. It's not like going down equally. And these young boys, when we're talking to them, we are getting such amazing insights when they're saying, oh, I don't want to be like my father, I
Yes.
don't want to do this. And that is so it's like a shot in the arm. Oh yes, we are on the right track, we have to move on. So Yes, I'm sure the younger generation is going to definitely do a lot. And there's so many of my friends whom I know. Yes, times are changing, but again, there's a lot that needs to be done.
And
And
I
the
mean,
way,
your husband, I have a husband who is a feminist. You have a husband who is feminist. These are the kinds of husbands
we
we
need,
wanted. So
right?
we wouldn't be happy with any other kind of husband. Really.
Absolutely, yes, yes. I mean, I see people and then I'm like, oh no, I can't. I don't know how. And I think girls definitely, when they're choosing their life partners, and they ought to realize that more than, looking at the bank balance or how settled the person is and what sort of background and stuff, I think what's important is what sort of belief system is your man having. And you have to be able to see that in action. And you have to also realize when it's starting to get, like toxic, and
Absolutely.
again, and then you have to make your choices, because there's so many women who kind of stay in bad marriages just because the society is pressurizing them or whatever, and then the girls model the same thing with their mothers. There's so many educated women I know who go through domestic violence. There are doctors who go through domestic violence. There are bureaucrats who go through domestic violence. So it's nothing to do with education or without education. I think it's that basic obsession for power and control
Yeah.
freak attitude, and
I
that
have
definitely needs to change.
I have some posters. I think I might have, did I send them to you? The ones how you know if you're in an unsafe relationship.
No, I haven't received that.
Yeah,
Do you
so
have it on your Insta?
I have some posters on the website. You
Yeah,
have to scroll down, but it says there's a checklist of about 5 areas of
right.
how you know you're in an unsafe relationship. And I think that is a really great one to unpack with boys and girls.
Perfect.
Like from the point of like, oh, we're looking at this would be an unsafe relationship. And for the girls looking at this, it might be a really great thing to take to your lessons with
Wow, I would love to take that, and we
them.
would definitely love to
I'll
show that
send
to the
them.
boys. Thank you so much, Janine. Thank you. So, about the gender roles, rigid gender roles. Any friend whom you know who disrupts this, or how many people, how many men around you kind of disrupt the gender roles, and how do you react and respond to people with rigid gender roles and rigid gender stereotypes? How do you, because we do socialize, right, and we come in touch with so many
Mm,
people around us, and it's not
mhm.
that everyone kind of aligns with the belief system that we have. There will be people different views and stuff. So do you come out when you come across someone with a rigid gender role, how do you respond to it?
Not very well, really.
I know.
I don't if I find someone who is really derogatory towards me or um is really misogynist, I don't even bother engaging because you can't change their mind. They're just so in this space. They will never change their mind because if they change their mind, that means they're vulnerable. That means the power is taken away. That means they might show a softness.
Right.
So I really just don't engage with them. And to be honest, we live a pretty quiet life. I don't want to deal with, and I don't want to deal with men like that online either. There is no point. There are so
Yes.
many women who might put something on or are fighting women's causes, and all they get online is these misogynist um,
Trolling and
trolling, and
yes.
I just don't engage with it really. I don't have time for it because they won't change. But what we can do is like with my daughter, who's got the book "Be Your Own Man," which talks about being all you can be this kind of man or this kind of man or sporty or you maybe a dancer. You can be all sorts of whatever you want to be, and that softness is a strength. This is where I want to make change down here. So even when I'm not on this planet anymore, as we
Wow.
go through, there will
Wow.
be a more harmonious, equal society where men and women can both be soft and men and women can both be strong. And, women don't always have to take on a masculine role to be noticed. Like it's okay to be feminine, it's not a bad thing
Right.
to be nurturing and
Right.
kind.
Right.
And we don't need to meet men where they are. We don't have to be going, oh, I'm really tough in this, and that sort of thing. We can bring in the feminine side. And, we see it with leaders like Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand.
Okay.
Brilliant woman,
Right.
brilliant woman. And she's a great leader, but in
Right.
that she has softness and strength. So it's a quality for both. But
It's
yes,
equality
I
for
don't
both.
really engage with misogyny so much.
Yes, yes. And we do have a lot of kids who are who belong to the LGBTQ community while growing up. They have their own challenges. So, key to change, in spite of being in India, if you see our logo, I don't know if I pass that on to you, but you can see that on all the posters and stuff. We've included all the genders. It has to be because these are the most vulnerable genders, women, and then the LGBTQ community, entire community. These are so vulnerable. And then the kids, but men somewhere always are trying to concentrate that power and use the power against most men, not all men of course, but most men are doing that. So yes, gender roles disruption is something that we all need, and I think it needs to start in your own families. So
Yes.
can you tell us a little about you and your husband, you work together. So
Yes,
how
we
does he
do.
support you? Because one of our action points is support your life partner in their growth. Because that is one
Okay.
of the
So
action points that we have taken, because that's very, very significant. So whoever your life partner is, you have to support them. Because in India, a woman is expected to have her own career. She needs to go for the job. She needs to take care of the entire family. You have to cook all the four meals properly in the house. You have to manage the home. And the man just does this. He goes to the office, he comes back thinking, okay, this is my only role that I have. So the kids' work plus everything is a woman's responsibility. And so many women, they are stressed out. And then we tag them. You're a superwoman, you're a super mom, and kind of put them on the pedestal, which I believe is very stressful. There's no need for this concept of superwoman and supermom, is personally what I believe. You just
yes,
have to be yourself and you shouldn't have to
much
stress
pressure.
yourself out so much.
It's
So
too
can you
much
tell
pressure.
us more about your how do you all manage? So
And
there are so many young viewers from India who are going to listen and okay, husbands can do this. Let them listen to this because they
we're
are
happy.
capable of doing this.
Well, we've been married. It'll be married 30 years next May, and
Wow.
we share everything. So we're like when we got married, we were like sort of two pillars together, not one leaning on the other, just two strong pillars together. And we have shared everything. In fact, we had our first daughter in Japan, and I continued to work up until the last month because she was breech. And once she was born, I probably only took a month off, and then we swapped. So I would teach through the day in Tokyo, and my husband would have Jess at home with her. He would feed her breast milk that I had expressed. So he fed
Wow.
her all the breast milk. He cooked all her meals. That's why she's probably a messy eater, because he would just put her in this little chair and let her feed herself. So she'd throw food everywhere. But he was a total care. And then 4:30, I would come home from Tokyo. We'd swap. He'd pass the baby over to me, and on we'd go. So that's how we worked. And then when we came back to Australia to live, we had another child. And so I probably had a little bit of time off. And then we actually had a lady who came to the house who looked after the two girls while Mark and I worked together. And we've always shared the cooking because I hate cooking, hate it. So he will cook one night or I'll cook, or we'll both cook together. Ever since the girls were about 12, they started the cooking. So they are all really good cooks. And
Wow.
then for cleaning the house and stuff, we get together on Saturday and he does the bathroom and the toilet and I clean the other parts of the house. So we are totally a 50-50. Of course, Mark's
Beautiful.
better technically than me, as we talked about, and I
Yeah.
write books, but we work together and it's totally equal. And we have discussions about this and the girls have seen this role modeled. So, in fact, finding a partner similar to their dad is pretty tricky. It
Pretty
really
tricky, yes, because you kind of have set the standards so high and so qualitative. Basically, there's so much of quality into it. It's difficult to find, that's for sure. But
well,
I
you're
want,
better on your own
yeah,
actually than living with a man who bosses you around and tells you what to do all the time.
absolutely. It's
You're
so
better on your own.
suffocating. Yes, absolutely. Jenny, this is so sweet of you. You've shared this, and I'm sure the audiences are going to love this part, this answer so much. Women are going to be like, oh, wow, I wish my husband was like this. I don't know. I mean, if you'd want to change your husband or no, but you can definitely concentrate and focus on your sons. You
I'm
have,
bringing hang on a
yeah,
sec.
yeah, yeah. Why not? Please.
We're talking about you, Mark. Come over here. This is my lovely
Hi,
husband.
hello.
This is Mark, and you can tell him we're totally informed.
Yes, dear.
Right. Amazing. So good to meet you. And
Sorry, no, we
so,
do everything that we do.
what would you like to tell boys, Mac? What would you want to tell the boys? There are so many boys and young men who need to be responsible, who need to learn so much, and they don't. We have very few, you can say, positive role models in the society. To be very honest. And to be very honest, I'll share this thing also. I've been trying to get people live for this discussion. I know so many men and who are working well, but I also know that they are misogynist and they are sexist and they have so many issues. I don't want to call them. So because I personally know them or whatever, and you get to know it. I'm finding it so difficult to find, to get men on this thing. I have till now, I've got like so many people, but I just got one doctor, Dr. Shantanu Abhyankar, who spoke with us in the last live. It's so difficult. So you're here, and I would want to take this opportunity and ask you, what would you like to tell the boys, the young boys, young men? How should they step up, or why should they step up? And how easy it is to step
In
up.
sense, you're referring to it as a stepping up, but I think possibly being a man is more difficult than a lot of. It's an unrealistic expectation, like an unrealistic expectation is placed on women as well. Now, if you're being sort of, you must not cry, you must have no feelings, you must provide for the family, you must be the disciplinarian, you must be all these things, that's kind of isolating and debilitating in itself. So it's, you should possibly step down from that and say, step down
Oh,
off that pedestal, be the partner to your partner. If
wow.
you're partners to each other, you share each other's
Happiness,
happiness and
sadness.
sadness, and it's a much more productive way to live if you're sharing. You don't have to be
Absolutely.
by yourself. You don't have to feel that pressure. You don't have to feel that stress. You can share it with your
You're a
partner.
team.
You can support your partner. So maybe
Yeah.
step down is
Right.
kind of a better way to.
Yeah, I'm going to take that. One is the enthusiastic consent, and this one step down, because we have this concept called, break the man box. We are all into this rigid man box. I
Yeah.
think Kevin Porter, he had introduced this term, he had coined this term, and the expectations that you're talking about, because they do suffocate boys and they do suffocate men. And that's exactly what this program is all about. Key to Change, Raise Responsible Boys is kind of trying to bridge that gap, because fathers won't speak and there's no, there are no role models. So organization like us is trying to reach out to these boys and tell them to step down, break the man box, don't try to fit in,
Yeah.
define
You
your own
don't
healthy masculinity. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to be all these things and everything. You can be a person who feels, a person who loves, a person who has
Right.
feelings, a person who works together. Women are not going to rob you of anything. They're going to
Absolutely.
enhance your life and
Mm.
Right.
be
Yeah,
better for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can enrich your life by not prescribing to these same stereotypes, to aspiring to unrealistic goals. You can live a partnership and augment each other. I mean, Jay has strengths and I have strengths, and
Absolutely.
we are stronger together.
Yeah.
Mm,
Stronger
Stronger.
together. Yes.
mm.
I'm
Yeah.
getting my hashtags. Again, there's so many things I've been taking. It's amazing connecting with you guys. And I would want to know, what is your view of this Key to Change campaign by Cactus Foundation, Jay? I just am so waiting to know, what exactly do you think? And why did you say yes to this interview?
Oh,
You didn't know
so
me and I didn't know you at all.
he's going back
Okay.
to work.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thank you
That's
so
okay.
much. It was lovely meeting you. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye bye.
Because I think you're doing an amazing job, and I think it's such a necessary job, particularly in India. I think that talking to boys is the missing link sometimes. Like, they're not the enemy. They just, like Mark said, they don't know. They kind
Exactly.
of don't know how to be with equality. They're not sure. So I love what you're doing. I think you're very passionate about it. So that passion matches mine. So I'm very happy to do whatever I can. And also, I love India. I
Oh, wow.
had told you I've been there a couple of times, and I've worked with World Vision Gifting, and
Right.
my body, what I say goes, and I wrote them a consent book for teenagers. So I think there's a lot of work to be done in India, and it just breaks my heart to hear the statistics. So I think that is probably why I really was attracted to working with you and talking with you today. And if there's ever anything I can do to help, I'm always willing to do whatever I can.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That means so much. We are making so many friends across the borders. As you know, there's such good friends and amazing people, all of you. So I think I'm sure the audiences have understood a lot about consent, and I want you to head on to Jayneen's, social media handles on Instagram as well as on Facebook, plus her website. I will be putting that down on our page as well, and we will put it in our story as well. We are going to tag her, so all of you can just about connect with her, or even if you put it in the comment anytime you want, our team will reply with the social media handles, and you can definitely connect with her and make the most of the amazing content that she has, the resources that she has. And what I like about your resources is I've seen them, and being a psychologist, I have noticed that it's not just about creating some cartoon or something for the children. It is very well thought. It is clinically put. That's what I would like to say. So that's the best thing I liked about your content. It is not just about, okay, I'm making a book on this and I just have to give it out. The content is amazing. Her books are amazing. I'm going to be seeing if I can get some in Dubai, and I'll be ordering them as well because I want to go through the books as well. So thank you so much, Jay. But now we are into the last segment of this talk, and you can ask the host any question that you would want to, any two questions, whatever, quickly.
Yeah. Okay. So why are you so passionate about this whole body safety and consent?
Okay. Basically, I am a very, very passionate person. I think I have been like this since my childhood when it comes to changing things. And, I don't know, I have been a rebel growing up in India, growing up in a conservative family for quite some time. I have been a rebel all my life. And my parents were extremely good. They were quite open, but we stayed in a joint family. And for me, in my standard sixth, I went through an episode of being sexually abused by my sports coach. And that kind of took play away from my childhood totally. And I kind of just, you can say, pushed that memory into the subconscious, and I did not respond to it at all until I gave birth to my daughter. And when she was 6 months old, I met with an unfortunate accident and I was bedridden for 1.5 years. And I had a history of like 10 years of solid clinical psychologist practice. I was good, I was doing well, I was all over the place, and I was always already dealing with people who are going through sexual abuse as children, and adults going through a lot of issues and the complications that survivors go through, and I was able to help heal everything. But can you believe this, Jayneen? In spite of knowing everything about child sexual abuse, I was totally, you can say, ignorant or dismissive about what happened to me. And when my daughter was born, I started getting paranoid and I was bedridden. So that kind of put me into a tight spot, and I would not allow my daughter, anybody to pick my daughter or take her out. Even my husband, if he would take her out in the evening for a stroll, I would get restless. I would almost get anxiety and panic attacks as to what's happening and why it's happening. And my husband kind of understood that there is some issue, and he kind of made me confront, and he said, you have to think, you must ask yourself, what is this paranoia all about? And then when I kind of deep dived, tried to analyze, and then I could access that memory as a child, and that kind of ruined me to a great extent because I stopped playing, because play and anything to do with playing was out of my life, so much that I never went for any physical fitness class. So gyms were a big no. Even at the age of 21, 22, even if I'm putting on weight, I did not want to go to it. Even now, that idea is dreadful. To have a personal trainer is a dreadful thing for me as a person. So, and I think it's not me. I did not begin this, I would say. I was still trying to recover from it. It's my husband who realized that, in spite of being a successful psychologist, working with child sexual abuse survivors, so efficiently you've worked with them, but you were not able to understand the trauma, your own trauma, and you were not able to understand the impact it had. And after that, because of that accident, because of the health complications due to no play, I put on 100 kgs. I was 100 kgs at one time. I went through 7 surgeries later. So it was a very traumatic thing. But also, I would say that that was very empowering, because my husband, he stood by me and he floated this organization. He said,
Ah,
let's do this, because there's so many kids and so many of us who do not know about it, and nobody's talking about it in India. So let's
yeah,
begin this. So,
fantastic,
so that's how we
fantastic,
began. That's how we
great.
began. So
That is so great. It's a great idea, great partnership as well. You
yes,
and your
yes,
husband.
absolutely.
So
Yes,
that's
he's the
fantastic.
strongest pillar in Cactus Foundation. He's always there backstage. He will never come front stage, but he's the one who's constantly motivating all of us to, move ahead and to do it. So that's the best part.
And one more question. You have one daughter
I have one daughter. She's
and
like
one
10
son.
years old, and one son. He's just 3. Yes.
Okay, so what are your hopes and dreams for your daughter?
Um, I don't have dreams for my daughter as such, because I want her to dream. I want her to write her own dreams. And all I know about myself is I will be there, and we will be there as parents, inshallah, to kind of just be around her and to help her realize her dreams, her hopes, her aspirations. That's it. I don't have any expectations that, oh, because she needs to be this, and yes, but the only thing that we hope is, she always prioritizes being a human being first. Is It sounds very cliche, but that is a
No,
priority in our homes. We are very transparent. We have open conversations, and every time the focus is, how good a person can you be for yourself first, and for people around you. You have to have your self interest. You cannot be selfless all the time. So there are many such things. But yes, her dreams, her hopes are up to her.
are hers. They belong to her.
They
That's
belong
right.
to them. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. uh,
So
so I don't
I
think
love
I have.
talking to you, Jay. This was amazing. We must do it. I think you're going to release a new book. Why don't you tell us about it, a little about it? There is some
Okay,
launch, and
I'll hold that up, shall I?
wow. Oh, beautiful. I love the title.
Yes, this is Hope, and it's a book to help children build resilience and assist those recovering from and or living in family violence situations.
Okay.
So it's it was sort of supported by 2 domestic violence shelters in Australia, and they're going to launch it on the 13th of April. So join if
Wow.
you'd
All
like
the
to,
best. And I'm
out
sure
there,
it's wonderful. Yes.
13th of April.
Lovely.
And it's a book. People have asked me, kids in domestic violence homes, like, how can you help them? And I thought to myself, like, I really can't help them. I don't know how to help them. Like, it must be horrific. It must be hard for them to live in these homes. And I have a book called Talking About Feelings. So I thought, well, this will be a great book for kids in domestic violence homes. So, they can talk about how they're feeling and what,
Right.
psychologists like yourself could go through this book with
Yes.
them. And then, but I did challenge myself to write this book. And now this book is about a little boy who lives in a domestic violence home, and how he always hopes that things might change. And then at the end, he realizes that he is that change. So when he grows
Wow.
to
So
be a man,
empowering. Beautiful.
yeah,
Awesome.
he is the change as a
Awesome.
young man. So I'm very excited. It's actually really a beautiful illustration.
Right, right. The illustrations are good. I'm sure it's going to be one rocking book, and it's going to help a lot, and it's going to make a huge difference to all
Yeah.
these young readers who are probably struggling through this, and that's really nice. I'm wishing you all the best on behalf of the entire team Cactus Foundation, and I'm wishing the best for you, sending you a lot of love from India, And you must know that you have Cactus Foundation in India. So whenever you decide to come to India, we will invite you definitely even to India. We have a lot of plans for the future. And there's so many of our friends from, different parts of the world who will be visiting India. You definitely are on the list, and you have a home in India. Anytime, let us know what we can do for you. And
Okay.
anytime.
That is so
Okay?
lovely. That is so lovely. And you have a home here. If you ever
Yes.
come to
Thank you so
Australia,
much. Thank
you
you so
have a
much.
home
Yes.
here. It's a lovely partnership. You're a
Yes.
wonderful woman, a lovely, doing fantastic work. So I'm just
Thank you
honored
so
to
much. Yes.
be
This feeling
to
is
have.
mutual. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Thank you so much.
All
Take
right.
care and have a great day. So, I hope
You
our
too.
audiences understand and go through the entire video and also realize that Jayneen has come up so beautifully. She's spoken about enthusiastic consent. We also have, her husband Mac. I mean, a while ago, he kind of just dropped in and she pulled him in because that's what we're talking about, teamwork here. So young boys, young men, and even people who are married right now, they need to understand that all this is teamwork. Gender equality is not a dream. It actually should be a reality, and we should not be stopping ourselves from acting on simple things. And I'm sure everyone has this basic instinct to feel good, to do good. Just follow that good instinct that you have to do good, and you have to be kind, you have to be compassionate, and you have to treat every person around you as a human being first. That's the first identity. Rest, everything is really not relevant. What's important is that the person is a human being, and respect, dignity, compassion, and yes, consent. Start practicing that. She has given us some wonderful tips about how, so many examples and experiences that she's shared, where you can start utilizing this in your daily routine, in your daily life. Do let us know, how did you like this interview? And Jayneen, you are such a pleasure. I mean, it was amazing, fantastic, incredible to talk to you. And I love this time that I spent with you. I'm looking forward to spending more time with you. Okay,
Nice.
so that's all for
Well,
now.
thanks so much for having me.
Yes,
Bye.
bye bye. Take care, all of you. So stay tuned for another live interview. The next time we will announce the guest, and that's about it. I hope you all understand that Key to Change Raise Responsible Boys is a Cactus Foundation India initiative, and our social partners internationally are Chameleon Philippines and Chameleon France. They are taking a 12 action point agenda to different schools and different communities outside. At the same time, we have the 12 action points on YouTube. They are available in Hindi and English. We also have the 12 action points on Facebook. We also have the 12 action point videos on Instagram handle. There is a lot of activity that's happening. Stay tuned and do circulate this message. In India, there are several NGOs who have chosen to partner with us. They are also trying to figure out, it's tough during COVID, so they are trying to figure out how they can reach the community. What Cactus Foundation is doing is we are reaching school to school. We're talking to young boys, we are taking their workshops, and we are open to anybody who would want to have a workshop on Key to Change Raise Responsible Boys with a 12 action point. Whether it can be a couples group, it can be a school, it can be a club. Anyone is free to just you can say roll this initiative on in their own community. You can contact us on 8888441636. And we have in India Hosla from Hyderabad, who are trying to do something in this count in their community. We haven't received any updates from our different partners about how they're trying to manage in the community. The moment we receive, we'll be putting it and updating it on the social media website. But Chameleon France and Chameleon Philippines are doing an amazing job in the community, taking the Cactus 12 action point agenda to the French schools, to their community in Philippines. So for Cactus Foundation India, this is like a big, big, big thing. So stay tuned and watch out for another interview very soon with another magnificent personality. So till then, take care. Bye-bye.